Good morning, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Favorite Album of the Year. We've arrived at 2007. Another very good year for music. Oh, it's true. It's damn true. This one's pretty easy for me, though, actually. As good a year as this was, a lot of stellar releases. I knew going in there were two that were going to be just a little bit higher than everybody else. And as because I go through all the releases that come out in each year. I look at different genres, look at overall, it's a pretty exhausting process, but it's the only way to do it because you want to make sure you're not missing anything. And then what I do is I go back and I look on the Sea of Tranquility website and I take a look and see what my top picks were in that calendar year, because all of the writers, all of the staff actually do that at the end of every year. We pick our favorites. And I look back then and I say, okay, what was my favorites then? And then I try to, say, okay, here we are X amount of years later. How does it compare to how I feel about these albums now, right? So in this case, both of my picks for today, my favorite and my runner-up, were one is exactly where it was. The other is going to be a little higher, okay? I think both these albums have really stood the test of time for me. And this comes at a time where this is the kind of stuff that I was listening to. I mean, progressive metal and technical death metal and hard prog. That's kind of where I was at in 2007. That's a lot of what I was listening to. So it's no surprise that these two are really standing the test of time. Here we are in 2020. So let's get to my favorite here, shall we? Released June 26, 2007 for Inside Out Records, produced by none other than their guitar player and main songwriter Michael Romeo. Symphony X, Paradise Lost. Not only is this my favorite release of 2007, this is actually my favorite Symphony X album right here. I just remember, I was riding the wave with Symphony X in 2007. I had been listening to them for not quite a decade, all right, thereabouts. And loved all their albums, but man, then this came out and this thing just kind of like melted my face off. This is just such a snarling, heavy album. It's expertly produced. There's, all those great, catchy Michael Romeo melodies, the shredding guitar solos, the crushing riffs, the amazing vocals of Russell Allen, the tight rhythms, the great keyboards. It's all here, but there's just like a kind of bigness and epicness to this album that I think they hadn't yet captured. There's like a ferocity here that, for me, and they had a good amount of that on their previous albums, but there's something about this album and all the ones kind of moving forward that I think just really endeared themselves to me. You got Set the World on Fire, Dominator, The Crushing Serpent's Kiss. I love that song to death. Paradise Lost, Eve of Seduction, The Walls of Babylon, 7, The Sacrifice, and of course Revelation to kind of finish it all up. You got the cool instrumental that kind of kicks things off of the album. Just a fantastic, fantastic album. Great imagery on here, stellar package from Inside Out. As always, love it. Heavy album, but it's quite progressive too. A lot of technical stuff going on here. Totally dig it. Totally dig it. So my number two. Again, I knew this was going to be up there. I knew Symphony X was going to win this day, all right, for this calendar year. It's just a question of my runner-up. But I knew this was going to be up there. So I took a look at some of the other ones that were kind of floating near the top and said, that's got to be Between the Buried and Me, Colors. I was listening to Between the Buried and Me before this came out, and I dug them. But here is where they had me all on board. I think it's with this album. They started it on Alaska, where they started to do much more proggy stuff. Because, technically speaking, Between the Buried and Me were basically like a hardcore act early on with some proggy tendencies. And then they slowly started to add lots of kind of, progressive and jazzy elements into their sound, and they became, the hardcore stuff kind of went by the wayside, other than the fact that they still use growling vocals with clean vocals, but their music's so complex. I think, the influence of Dream Theater, pretty easy to detect here. Crushing, massively heavy guitar riffs, amazing guitar solos, plenty of keyboards, intricate rhythms, concept, and they released a bunch of, this is like the first of a few concept albums they would release. And they would start to add avant-garde elements. There's little pop melodies here and there. So a very, very talented band that I think if you've, kind of cast aside Between the Buried and Me just because, of their earlier stuff and the fact that they have, growly vocals on a good majority of their albums, I think you need to give them a second chance. Very, very intelligent music, very well put together and crafted, and I dig them quite a bit. So there you have it. Symphony X, Paradise Lost, Between the Buried and Me Colors. That's my favorite of the year, my runner-up. You might be asking, I'm sure you are, Pete, what else you got from this calendar year? Coming in probably not far behind Between the Buried and Me is Porcupine Tree's Fear of a Blank Planet. Another one of those bands, around this time. I'm listening to my main bands right around this time, 2007, is Symphony X, is Opeth, is Dream Theater, is Porcupine Tree, is Between the Buried and Me. That's the kind of stuff, Amorphous, Nile, that's the stuff that I'm listening to constantly right around this time. Rush, Snakes and Arrows, also up there pretty high. Dream Theater, Systematic Chaos, Amorphous, Silent Waters, Magic Pie, great Norwegian prog band, Circus of Life, Camelot's Ghost Opera, a lot of great Camelot albums right around this time. Candlemass, King of the Grey Island, Nile, Ithyphallic, Down 3, Over the Under, fantastic album. Opeth, the Roundhouse Tapes, their live album. Primordial, To the Nameless Dead, great Irish extreme metal band. And how about Epic of the Divine Conspiracy? Back in 2007 on the website, on our end of the year list that we put together, Epica was actually my number 2. So that's what I wanted to go back and check. It's like, all right, so I knew this was going to be up there. What was my number 2 in 2007? I saw that it was Epica, and while I do still love that album a lot, don't love it as much as I used to, and not as much as I do this one today. So, of course, you got to take into consideration how you feel in the present day as well. So there you have it. Curious to see your winners, your choices from 2007. I think it was a pretty strong year. Again, a lot of really good metal. Really good year for metal. Prog, I think the not as strong a year for prog stuff, but still some really notable releases. But progressive metal, certainly. So down below in the comments, list your picks, your favorite, your top 3, your top 5, your top 10, 20, whatever you want to do. There's no right or wrong answer. We all hear these albums differently. We all have our favorites. And make sure you visit us on the web. Gotta say this slow because my wife says I said it too fast. www.seaoftranquility.org. I do these every day. I'm so used to www.seaoftranquility.org. And she's like, but hun, nobody's going to catch that. You're saying it too fast. I'm like, I think after all these years, everybody knows what the URL of the website is, but that's okay. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Coming up momentarily. Time for another listening room, man. What's everybody listening to out there in lockdown? Although the lockdowns are starting to lessen up, at least here in New York, little by little. We're getting back to normal, hopefully. But I still want to know what everybody else is listening to, and I got a stack of shit that I'm listening to, so I wanted to kind of share with you all. And tomorrow, man, all sorts of stuff happening tomorrow. Holy moly, tomorrow is crazy taping day. Martin Popoff back on the show tomorrow. Stephen Reed back on the show tomorrow. I got in the works, not sure exactly what day we're doing it yet, but it's probably going to happen this week. Been long wanting to do a Nearfest Memories show. So for those of you who don't know what Nearfest was was it was the Northeast Art Rock Festival, mostly held in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania for over a decade. Okay, back in the late 90s into the 2000s, where it was a 3-day festival with all sorts of known and unknown prog rock bands playing, sell out every year. I went to the first 7 of them. Unbelievable stuff. Rob LaDuca and Chad Hutchinson, the 2 guys that made it all happen, are coming on the show to kind of take a look back now all these years later at that great festival called Nearfest. What were some of the high points, some of the low points, some of the favorite bands they like to work with, and just the 3 of us are going to kind of share some memories on that great festival, which happened, many years in a row, which was a lot of fun. So that's coming up. Got a big surprise for later in the week. I'm not ready to announce that one yet. A couple other things in the works. Lots of ranking the album shows and all sorts of stuff. So Gary Moore, hopefully Frank Marino, hopefully Procol Harum. All right, it's all sorts of stuff. All sorts of stuff. So stay tuned. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.